California limits rent increases to 10% a year for tenants living in apartments built before 1995. But a law known as Costa-Hawkins prevents cities and counties from passing further rent control, like for newer buildings, single-family homes, or new tenants. The Justice for Renters Act, Proposition 33, would repeal that law, allowing cities and counties to control rents for any housing. Jose Lopez is a community organizer in San Diego. He supports Prop 33.
This matters a whole lot, especially for the thousands of Californians who are really one rent increase away from having to move out of their homes.
Typical monthly rent for a California apartment has risen about $500 over the last 7 years. In San Diego, it's more than $2,600. And homelessness is increasing, despite more being spent to address it. Lopez is advocating for families like his own.
We eventually became an organizer, and I couldn't believe that they actually would pay me to go and talk to people about the things that most people told me to just be quiet about.
He had been paying a little over $2,100 in monthly rent. After a leaky sink flooded their house, he says the landlord evicted them, remodeled, and raised the rent. He now pays almost $3,800 to live a couple blocks away.
Because I had to invite my brother to come in and live with us to help pay part of the rent. And then besides that, just, making sacrifices, like, cutting expenses.
Lopez and other supporters are up against a long list of local leaders who oppose Proposition 33, including San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria and the mayors of Carlsbad, Chula Vista, and Temecula, and Senator Tony Atkins. Apartment and realtor associations have donated more than $67 million to fight the measure. Lucinda Lilly recently served as president of the Southern California Rental Housing Association.
Our industry as a whole find it sad that it's us versus them. It's not the way we see it. We'd love to get together and work out solutions rather than just get hammered every time somebody comes up with an idea that says, you own rental housing, therefore you're really rich, therefore you're a bad person, therefore I'm going to screw you over.
She says rent increases are necessary to cover repairs. Most housing in the city of San Diego is more than 30 years old. She says California over-regulates rental housing already, and it's driving landlords out of the market. More rent control would make that worse, she says, and discourage developers from building new housing. Instead, she would like to see local governments offer more rental assistance.
A lot of times, it's a matter of my car broke down, I can't afford to pay my rent. I just need a short-term loan to get me through the next month, right?
A few years ago, researchers analyzed more than a dozen studies on the impacts of rent control. They found it does work to keep rent lower and increase housing stability for current tenants. They say there's not much evidence that it reduces new construction or housing quality, but it does tend to reduce the total number of rental units as owners take them off the market. Ricardo Flores leads a nonprofit that advocates for affordable housing. He says rent control isn't a perfect solution, but it's necessary.
You've got to stop the crisis and then think about where to go from here.
And he thinks it has to be done with changes to zoning.
We don't really have the luxury to say, well, let's do one or let's do the other. People continue to have to make decisions about food, medicine, or rent.
Single-family-only zoning takes up more than 80% of San Diego's residential land. Flores argues that has to change for enough affordable housing to be built. San Diego has a housing crisis, but he says it's a solvable one.
This is not putting a man on Mars or a woman on Mars.
I'll moderate a panel at PolitiFest tomorrow where you can hear Lilly and others debate this measure and inform your vote. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.